Brahmata Shakita Tvameva Tvameva Bandhu Sthata Tvameva Tvameva Vishyam Nityam Tvameva Tvameva Sarvam Nateva Tvameva Hello, are you with me? Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, I'm sorry, just a minute. Okay. Uh, 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 this prayer, you can also see me too? Hello?
Yes,
Hello?
we can see you. We can see you. Let's proceed. Yeah, we can see you.
Oh, okay, you can see the,
Yes, we can
okay,
see the
I'm
screen.
sorry.
Tvameva Mata.
Yeah, we can't hear you.
Okay,
I can. I unmuted.
okay, all right. Okay, thank you very much. Okay. Thank you very
Chalo.
much.
Chalo.
You alone are my mother and my father. You alone are my friend and my beloved companion. You alone my knowledge and my wealth. O Supreme Lord, you alone are everything for me. This came from Pandava Gita, which is a hymn dedicated to Lord Krishna. There are 76 verses sung by many, including Lord Brahma, sages, Indra, Pandavas, Draupadi. See, Pandavas owes everything to Lord Krishna. Because if no Lord Krishna, Pandavas would not have won the Mahabharata war. So that is the reason why this one is extremely important. Because I had to slowly introduce myself because there are so many joining today, so I will briefly go. In 30 years ago, I wrote this book for my son, Daddy, I Am a Teacher, which came from my heart, not from my head. So because when my son asked the question, Daddy, are we just cowboys? Because I thought as an engineer, I had to write this book. In 1992, many universities as well as many public libraries and private libraries in the United States want to carry my book. So I made it, change the name, Daddy, Am I Hindu to Am I Hindu, because Boston University, UCL, and they're all UCL. Then this was translated to Hindi and Indonesian. Then I wrote another book in 2018, Amazing Secret Bhagavad Gita. I wrote another book saying Amazing Secret of Hinduism, book about Hindu kings, Hindu scientists, and Indian scientific disgrace of contribution to the world. And then the people like to read my books since they are written in very simple English, question and answer format, very little Sanskrit words, respecting all religions, lots of charts and diagrams, no fanatical statement whatsoever, backed by that is the reason why people like my books. And today's discussion is what is Karma Yoga, how it is related to self-realization. That is the subject we are going to discuss today. And Bhagavad Gita, to me, is a very, very important book because I am not fanatic about the book. There is no teacher like Lord Krishna ever walked upon this earth, and there is no book like Bhagavad Gita on planet Earth. Bhagavad Gita is not a religious book, but a scientific manner, since it discusses subjects like birth, death, action, happiness, sorrow, depression, salvation, creation, destruction, which are universal in nature. Bhagavad Gita is for everyone, even those who have nothing to do with Hinduism, as well as for atheists who do not believe God or religion. I firmly believe that people should study Bhagavad Gita subjects by. Since Lord Krishna is discussing more than 50 subjects in the Bhagavad Gita, starting from Sankhya philosophy. These are some of the subjects I dealt with in my book. Sankhya philosophy, Atman, Varna system, Maya, yoga, upside down tree, best and worst time today, food and fasting. All this I put in my book. That's the reason 2015, I wrote book, Amazing Secrets, Bhagavad Gita. For example, Lord Krishna discussed Sankhya philosophy from chapter 2, verse 39 onwards to verses, up to many other verses, all chapters, including the 18th chapter. This book is an in-depth discussion about every aspect of Bhagavad Gita between an 18-year-old American-born grandson and his grandpa in Kiyapa. Because there was so much interest in the book, I got a US publisher to publish it in United States, and another publisher in India to publish Indian edition. Bhagavad Gita is a discussion between the first person, Lord Krishna, and the second person, warrior Arjuna, in the middle of the battlefield, seen and heard telepathically by third person Sanjaya, who is an advisor, and telling the fourth person blind king Dhartarashtra. You may ask yourself, who is the fourth person Dhartarashtra? That is you and I. You and I are blind to so many things. That's the reason why I said. And Bhagavad Gita was start his advice. Lord Krishna did not start his advice to Arjuna with Bhakti Yoga in the Bhagavad Gita. First, Lord Krishna advised Arjuna through Jnana Yoga, start with Sankhya philosophy. Then Lord Krishna advised Arjuna through Karma Yoga. Then Lord Krishna advised Arjuna through Raja Yoga. Then finally, Lord Krishna advised Arjuna through Bhakti Yoga, total surrender to God. This is the way the whole Bhagavad Gita is structured. Most people do not know this. These are the chapters. I'm not going to read all those chapters. And chapters are known as yogas in the Bhagavad Gita. If you see Arjuna Vishada Yoga, it's not there is a yoga named Arjuna Vishada. It's only Arjuna's grief in that chapter. This is the way the Mahabharata. Mahabharata has 220,000 verses, and there is at least 200 layers in it. And it starts with Rishi Parashara, Satyavati. Rishi Parashara had a relationship with Satyavati, and then from Satyavati had a son named Rishi Vedavyasa. Vedavyasa, then on the other side, the Kuru dynasty started with King Shantanu. He married Ganges and a son named Bhishma. Then when Ganges left, King Shantanu married Satyavati. They had two sons, Vichitravirya and Chitrangada. Both of them got married to Ambika and Ambalika, two princes. Unluckily, they both died. Then Satyavati asked Rishi Vedavyasa to impregnate both the princesses, and Ambika gave birth to Dhartarashtra and Ambalika to Pandu. And there was a maid who also got impregnated by Rishi Vedavyasa, and he had Vidura. From Pandu married two wives, Madri and Kundi. Kundi had Karna before marrying Pandu. Then he had Yudhishthira, Bhimasena, Arjuna. Madri had two sons, Nagula and Sahadeva. Dhartarashtra met Gandhari from Gandhara. He's from, it is actually a place in Afghanistan. And he had Duryodhana and 99 brothers and Dushala, the daughter. And Draupadi married 5 Pandavas. Bhimasena married Hidimbi and got Gadotkaja. Arjuna married Subhadra, sister of Lord Krishna, had a son named Abhimanyu who died in the Mahabharata war. And he married Uttara, and they had a son Parishit, and then Parishit had a son Janame Vikega. After that, the dynasty ends. And by the time the Kali Yuga started, and the whole the Pandava dynasty ended with that. I am one of those who firmly believe Mahabharata war was not a bloody war of relatives killing relatives. Instead, it was a symbolic war between right and wrong, good and bad, which is happening within all of us every day. Arjuna symbolized Jivatman and Krishna symbolizes God of Paramatman. Kurukshetra symbolizes field of action. 5 horses symbolize 5 sense organs. Pandavas symbolize positive spiritual thoughts. And Kauravas symbolize negative structural thoughts. Well, just like I said so many times, I studied Bhagavad Gita so many times. And Lord Krishna to me acted like a psychologist in the Bhagavad Gita. He started, Arjuna was, as soon as he ended the battlefield of Kurukshetra, Arjuna became totally disheartened and he was depressed when he saw Bhishma with all kinds of weapons. He saw Karna with Pashupatam and Nagastram. When he saw Drona with Brahmastram, Ashwatthama with Brahmastram, Shalya with so many weapons, Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma has given him. And also he saw the whole Krishna's army standing against to attack him. So he got desperate. Then after that, what happened is he gave up. That's why Krishna knew that he had to treat Arjuna with very careful, and that's what happened. Most people think more doctors in Bhagavad Gita should be used as a clinical tool to treat psychological problems, particularly those related to anxiety, fear, and depression, etc. And negative attitude and depression and negative attitude towards life. Now let us see some. See, Krishna knew Arjuna is completely disheartened and depressed. So that is the reason why Arjuna is asking himself why bad things happen to good people. There is a great book, When Bad Things Happen to Good People, by Harold Krishna. All of us ask this question. That's why Krishna put it at the very outset. At the very outset of Mahabharata, Lord Krishna said to Arjuna, Agama Paino Anitya Kamchitishina Bharata. Arjuna, everything will come and go in our lives. So do not get attached to them. Krishna said, happiness and unhappiness are temporary experiences that rise from sense perception. Heat and cold, pleasure and pain will come and go. They never last forever. So do not get attached to them. Good and bad things will come in our lives. We have no control of them. That will happen in the richest person and the poorest person. Throughout the Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna brought up the pointless of giving undue importance to material things. The more we are attached to material things, as the more we suffer. Attachment in whatever form is bondage. Detachment is not indifference, it is freedom. According to Hindu scriptures, human life is believed to comprise of 4 stages based on physical and mental development. These are called ashramas. Every man has to go through it. That's why Lord Krishna said, Arjuna, perform your prescribed duty, that is ashrama dharma. For doing so is better than inaction. One cannot even maintain one's body without any work. According to Hindu scriptures, nobody can bypass any of the 4 stages in life called ashrama. Of course, few people like Adi Shankara, Vivekananda, and Paramhamsa Yogananda and so many gurus are bypassed. They did not enter Grahastha Dharma. The ashramas are kept very structured manner thousands years ago before rishis. See, this ashramas was developed according to a person's physical maturity, mental maturity, and intellectual maturity. So brahmacharya is almost like a child. So unmarried student life. A student should be completely concentrating on studies, nothing more. Grahastha is household, married life, taking care of wife and children, and the wife taking care of the husband and children, and they die. Vanaprastha, you have to slowly withdraw from the world and prepare for a spiritual stage, spending more time on spiritual matters. Sannyasi is total withdrawing from life and 100% involved in spiritual matters, have become a wandering ascetic. I hope you are with me because I am slowly developing the whole concept of karma. Napoleon Hill, in his popular, the landmark bestseller book, Think and Grow Rich, I wish everybody should read, I highly recommend everybody to read that book, wrote, thoughts are things. Hindu scriptures state thousands of years ago, thoughts are karmas. Any thought you make circles around you like honeybees around a flower. Thoughts are very powerful. All thoughts are counted as a part of the karmic debt of the person, however insignificant you may think it is. A thought never dies. It may lose its power or strength at a time, but never dies completely. If you can become a master of your thoughts, you can become the master of your life as well as master the world around you. That is the reason why in the Rig Veda it is written, let noble thoughts come to us from everywhere. That is also the reason why Jesus said, love thy enemy. When the rest of the Middle East at that time was screaming an eye for an eye and tooth for a tooth. Jesus knew hateful, jealous thoughts are a boomerang and it will eventually come and destroy us. See, the way Krishna developed Karma Yoga is amazing. First, he started Sankhya philosophy, then it come to Karma Yoga. Lord Krishna first started telling a broken heart, depressed Arjuna all about Sankhya philosophy. Immediately after that, Lord Krishna started advising Arjuna about Karma Yoga. You may ask, why did he talk about Bhakti Yoga? Because Karma Yoga can be easily practiced by anyone who has nothing to do with Hinduism, nor even having a belief in God. Anybody on planet Earth can practice Karma Yoga. In fact, billionaires like Bill Gates are practicing it, whether they are aware of that now. They may not call themselves Karma Yogis, but they are by their action, they are Karma Yogis. There are many millionaires and billionaires who are practicing Karma Yoga. I have met one millionaire in where I live that who gave away a lot of money anonymously. And one day I told him, you are practicing Karma Yoga. He said, I never heard of it. Very true. But he is practicing Karma Yoga. It's amazing that Ahangara or Ahamba or ego came from Sankhya philosophy. Arjuna's problem was ego. Our problem is also ego. See, Sankhya Yoga starts with Purusha, energy, Prakriti. Then comes Mahat and Buddhi. Then comes Ahangara. From Ahangara with Gunas, then it goes down to Indriyas. So that's the way this is system. So the biggest obstacle in life is Ahangara or ego. Arjuna's main problem was his ego. Even the God of gods, Lord Krishna, stood next to him to help him. Arjuna's ego always took charge of him. Humility was not a word in Arjuna's dictionary. In fact, under the Mahabharata, after Lord Krishna left for Vaikuntha, Rishi Vedavyasa has to teach a very disheartened, broken-hearted Arjuna the whole Bhagavad Gita all over again. After that, Vedavyasa told Arjuna, go to Hastinapura, take your brothers in Panchali and go for a Tirtha Yatra. That is the end of Pandava. Lord Krishna introduced Karma Yoga to Arjuna in the following manner. See, I told you, it's very, very structured way of developing. I cannot believe about 5,000 or 10,000 years ago, this book is written in such a way that some engineer or somebody did it. That way, Arjuna, I have spoken to you about the wisdom of Sankhya philosophy. Now, please hear about the wisdom of Karma Yoga, the path of selfless action, the path of freedom from bondage. Lord Krishna continued, Arjuna, there are two classes of men in the world who attain self-realization. First, the people who follow Sankhya philosophy and try to realize truth through empirical philosophical speculation, and other who try to realize truth following Karma Yoga, the path of selfless action. Lord Krishna said, those who are ignorant will say Sankhya philosophy and Karma Yoga are totally different. Knowledgeable people never say that. Anyone who practices either of these get the same reward. Another major problem is Maya. Because of the Maya, we cannot think straight. Lord Krishna said the whole creation is Leela, and the creation from is Maya. Krishna said, in the beginning of Kalpa, I create everything. That is 4,320,000,000 years. And end of Kalpa, I destroy everything. Since we are part and parcel of that Maya, it is not easy for us to comprehend this Maya. Even Narada couldn't comprehend the Maya. Arjuna couldn't. Even Rishi Vishwamitra found very difficult to deal with Maya. Just like on and off switches on a digital computer make thousands of forms of illusion for all of us, through Maya, God is creating all the illusion and again and again. That is the reason why Rishi Ashtavakra said to King Janaka, father of Sita Devi in Ashtavarka Giram, oh great one, there is no need to look high to stars for answers. They are already within you. Just reach deep into yourself and find out the answers. Aurobindo, the modern mystic of India, during the Freedom Days, said, listen to inner voice. We cannot, Maya is so powerful and it is so difficult to even understand and discuss this. Gunas and Karma Yoga. See, it's slow, Krishna is slowly getting into Karma Yoga, for putting parts of Sankhya and explaining to us. Lord Krishna gave utmost importance to Sankhya Yoga and Gunas. Three Gunas are Sattva Guna, goodness, constructive, harmonious, spiritual, Rajo Guna, passive and active, and Tamo Guna, lazy, jealous, darkness, and destructive. All of us are born with three Gunas. In some people, Sattva Guna will be high. Some people, Tamoguna will be high, some will Rajoguna. According to Lord Krishna, each karma or action is influenced by a guna or a combination of three gunas. The food we eat, the people we associate with, the conversation we have, all influence our mind are connected to gunas. We get out of guna through a long process of evolution. We ascend through different guna states as our consciousness is purified. In the chapter Gunatraya Vibhaga Yoga, 27 verses, Lord Krishna explained three gunas associated with many things such as tapas, food, sacrifice, jnana, karma, intellect, courage, happiness, etc. Ask Arjuna to develop Sattva Guna first and then transcend all three gunas. Question: why do you think Karma Yoga is extremely important? Let me ask right. Answer: Ahambhava or ego. All of us are prisoners of ego, including Arjuna. Rishi Vishwamitra, even sage Narada had the problem. Ahambhava or ego is the reason why we suffer. At the same time, it is extremely difficult to get rid of Ahambhava or ego. I can say many things. If somebody says your book is really great, oh, I am so happy to hear that. If somebody says you write bad books, you should be doing your day job and you writing to somebody else, I am not that happy. That is true. Every time somebody say nice things about us, we are very happy. If something critical, we are not happy. That's the way us. Karma Yoga is based on Nishkama Karma. And it is the best and easiest way to get rid of Ahambhava. Amazing again, Ahambhava came from Sankhya philosophy. What is karma? Karma originates from the root word kar, meaning to do, make, perform, accomplish, cause and effect. Karma in natural means action as well as the result of a person's action. Even thinking and breathing are considered karma. We do karma all the time. Karmas we do dictate our past, present, and future. It is impossible to live without doing any action. Karma is about all the person has done, is doing, and will do in future. Karma is never considered as a punishment or reward. To some extent, it is almost like a Newton's law of action. For every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. For example, a child put his hand in fire. The fire burns. Child didn't do any sin or anything like that. Whether the child put his hand in fire or a log of wood is put in the fire burns. It is the nature of the fire to burn. So the child was not aware of the fact that the fire burns. Now child learned a lesson, don't put his hand in the fire. So that's the way karma theory works. So it never considered as a punishment or reward. Karma also means the cycle of cause and effect. According to the theory, whatever happened to a person happened because he or she caused it with his or her actions in this life or in previous lives. Karma is an important part of Hinduism, Jainism, Buddhism, and Sikhism. Samsara means repeated cycles of birth, life, death, and reincarnation due to the consequence of one's action in the past, present, and future. Hinduism, Jainism, Buddhism, Sikhism, and even Taoism believe in samsara. What is Karma Yoga? The law of karma is the law of action reaction, illustrated by saying, what we reap is what we sow. It's all the law of distribution which explains what we receive is the result of what we did in the past. Karma is exactly like a boomerang. Whatever we think or do will come back to us in course of time. Nobody can escape from the claws of karma. That's what Krishna said when he left Vaikunta. That when he, as a Rama, he killed Bali, and the Bali came as a hunter. And Krishna said to the hunter, don't feel sorry for yourself. As when I take a human body as Rama, and I did that, so according to the law of karma, I had to go through with this. Karma yoga means attaining salvation through the path of selfless action. The word yoga comes from the root way yuj, meaning to unite or bond. So yoga means God or means union with God or salvation. What is the basis of karma yoga? According to Lord Krishna as well as according to Lord Buddha, we do not incur any karmic debt if we do things selflessly, known as nishkama karma. Thoughts and action done without any selfish motive. Lord Krishna said the very outset, see chapter 2, verse 49 in the Bhagavad Gita. Arjuna, any action done with selfish motive to enjoy the results is inferior to selfless service, nishkama karma. Those who act motivated by selfish desires are indeed very unhappy. Lord Krishna further said, Arjuna, one who does selfless action, nishkama karma, one who performs duty without attachment, surrendering the actions to God, is not stained or infected by karmic death, as a lotus leaf is untouched by water. The doctrine of selflessness is the essence of Lord Buddha's teaching. Lord Krishna and Lord Buddha are repeatedly telling us to do selfless actions. Thereby, we can improve our relationship as well as keep us healthy. In the Holy Bible, Matthew 6:3, Jesus said, "But when you give to the poor, do not let your left hand know what your right hand is doing." Nishkama karma or selfless service is motivated in innate desire to help each other, into some another person. Even though selfless service is based on the principle of wanting no reward, not even a thank you card, and person who does selfless service get the highest reward of all, spiritual maturity and mental tranquility. How can we render selfless service in the community through Hindu temples? This is a question so many people ask me for the last 30 years. I even wrote to many Hindu temples about this. I don't know whether they are yet, but this is the way I look at it. The Hindu temples in the West should be used to serve, should not be used as a symbol of material accomplishment. Like, I give $1 million to build the biggest gopuram in this temple, or put my name under Ganesh, or it is given to this temple by so and so, or dressing up like a glorified prince and princess and going to the temple. No, they should be used a place for children to study languages, mathematics, Carnatic music, Natya Shastra like Mohiniyattam, Bharatanatyam, Kuchipudi, Kathakali, Maribari, as well as for elderly people to do satsang, so that they can sit down and talk about scriptures, their life, etc. Since Hindu temples in the West are filled with women who have very wide variety of experience in all types of professions, contractors, financial experts, engineers, architects, all types of doctors. So each temple should set up a pool of experts who can answer all kinds of questions from the devotees, particularly from students, in a selfless manner without any legal barrier. See, we have the First Amendment rights that we can express our views, as long as that views are not an advice, but a suggestion. I did it all the time when I was working. I mean, I will say, this is my suggestion, this is not an official rule. And people enjoy that, because many people do not know many things. I don't know many things, I am happy to know, but I know about the structures and how the building is built and what you have to look for, the problems, those kind of things. Since the answer the pool experts will give are general suggestions which are not legally binding, neither the governing body of the temple nor any individual is legally responsible for the answers given. Any attorney and all over the West will advise you how to do this. Christians are doing this, Muslims are doing it, Jews are doing it. It is a shame Hindus are not doing this. Please stop making Hindu temples show off one's personal accomplishment. Many among devotees are young people who are struggling with so many problems. There is nobody to answer their question. Many of their marriages are falling apart. They have financial problems. They have legal problems. If somebody could answer them, at least show them a direction. See, just putting up a temple and said, oh, Pujari will give you this puja, that puja, it is useless. It's not worth at all. That is the reason why many youngsters don't come to the temple. But if you make temple a place where they can congregate and discuss with elders about so many things, they will come more. That is not done. It's very sad. Those young devotees are totally invalid. People always ask me how to perform selfless service during day-to-day life. I know most of you may be doing this, But let me repeat again. First of all, we cannot do selfless service 100% because we have a family support. All our first priority is for the husband is wife and children, for the wife is husband and children. So this is the way I look at it. First time, find time to help even total strangers. Make available for friends and families in the time of need. Let us say you come to know your family friend, daughter or son's wedding. Call them and say, look, I am available. Please tell me what all things I can do. If you have a big family coming, why don't you all stay in my house? Let me help you. Or do you want to prepare food? I will come and help you. Do that. Don't just tell them that. Always make others the center of attention without glorifying one's achievement. If somebody talk, listen to them. Instead of saying, I did this, I did it, that's not the right way to do it. Under no condition, even look for a thank you card when helping others. Just do it and forget it. That's all you have to do. Never judge or gossip. Please don't, please don't, please don't. You have no idea what others are going through. People may smile at you, but behind that smile, many of them will be broken-hearted. They will be depressed. They are all maybe on the suicide level. Always put yourself in other people's shoes before you talk. Life is not easy, so you have to understand. When you are wrong, please admit and apologize. Don't think I will never apologize because I'm a great man, a great lady. That is now total nonsense. During conversation, be a listener as much as you can. Because most people don't talk. So when they talk, you have to listen. If they say, my car is not running well, if you know something, say, oh, why don't you go to this shop or that shop? You know, I need an auto mechanic, etc. Or somebody say, my roof is leaking. You can suggest them what to do. Even what is happening in Texas, there is ice storm. People could have told them what to do before it happened to conserve water and close the water valve to 3/4 and let water come very little so that even if they're icing, it will not ice the whole pipes. But see, people are looking for a shoulder to cry on many times. They are not looking for freebies. They are not looking for you to give him a loan or anything. They just want to hear you. Always be patient with others on public places. If you see somebody is getting a loaf of bread and you have 100 stuff to sell, ask them, why don't you go before me and I will go after you. Volunteer time from good causes like Chinmaya mission or any other mission. Help them, teach them in the Bala Vihaar and all those things, and help needy as much as you can. Now let me continue. We only have the right to do actions. You and I do not have any right to the fruit of action. That's what this Krishna says. Krishna said, you only have the right to act. At the same time, you do not have the right for the fruit of action. You should not act motivated by the fruit of action. Also, never be inactive any time. Lord Krishna is telling not to brag about things we did for anyone. Just take it as a privilege and a great chance to serve whenever we help anyone in any manner. According to many, Swadharma in the Bhagavad Gita means doing things according to the Varna one born into. I do not believe it. I feel Swadharma means doing one's prescribed duty according to ashrama. If you are a Brahma in the ashrama of Brahmacharya, you should be studying. If you are a Grahastya, you should take care of your wife and children and grandchildren. And the wife should take care of husband, children, and grandchildren. So your duty comes to the house first, then only outside the house. So you have to concentrate on it. You cannot give away everything to others. You have to take care of your house first. When you enter Vanaprastha, you should withdraw from material things and go more spiritual. Sannyasa, you should be full renunciate. Arjuna, being fit in yoga, perform your duty for dharma, abandoning all attachment to success or failure. Such equanimity of the mind in success as well as failure is what is called karma yoga. Arjuna, any action or service done with selfish motive enjoy result as far inferior to selfless service. Nishkama karma. Those who act motivate desire for the fruits of action fruit is indeed very unhappy. He continues, a person who knows to act this way get rid of himself both good and bad karmic debt. Acting without becoming attached to fruits of it is called karma yoga. Therefore, devote yourself to karma yoga. Those who are established in karma yoga, those who have renounced the fruit of action, are released from the bondage of rebirth and attain blissful divine state. Arjuna asked, suddenly with all said and done, Arjuna asked an extremely thought-provoking question. Let us see what he asked. Arjuna asked, wait a second, you're talking too much, Krishna. Krishna, if you say knowledge is superior to action, then why are you forcing me to commit this terrible deed of waging a war against my kith and kin? Arjuna continues, Krishna, you confuse my intelligence with conflicting messages. Therefore, instead of telling me many things, please tell me just one thing that will be most beneficial to me. Arjuna suddenly, see, this is the problem with Arjuna. When Krishna is talking, Arjuna suddenly says, please don't tell me all these things, just tell me what I should do. Don't go on giving me all kinds of answers. Krishna says, Krishna is very calm and quiet and said, Arjuna, the two paths, Jnana Yoga and Karma Yoga, leading to enlightenment were previously explained by me. The path of knowledge, Jnana Yoga, for those who incline towards contemplation, and path of work is Karma Yoga, for those who incline towards action. So each person has to decide what path he or she likes to take for enlightenment. Personally, I cannot take Jnana Yoga because I cannot get peace of mind through contemplation and all those things. So that is the reason why I am more prone to Karma Yoga. And some people may be different. They may be like Jnana Yoga, but most people are not. Anyway, that's what Arjuna is saying, I should not be fighting the war. You are asking me to kill people. And I thought Ahimsa Paramo Dharma is the real, non-violence is the immortal duty of Dharma in life. Wait a second. Lord Krishna never mentioned Ahimsa Paramo Dharma anywhere in the Bhagavad Gita. Actual verse is Ahimsa Paramo Dharma. Non-violence is the ultimate dharma, has two parts in the Mahabharata. Non-violence is ultimate dharma, so too is all righteous violence in service of dharma. That was told by Bhishma to Dharmaputra in the Mahabharata. That means to preserve dharma and eradicate adharma, a person can resort to violence if non-violence methods fail. Lord Krishna tried his best to avoid a war, but Duryodhana wanted a war to kill Pandavas, so war became unavoidable. And Krishna even went to see Duryodhana, and Duryodhana wanted to tie Krishna down. So Krishna was forced to ask Pandavas to go with the war because there was no other alternative to deal with the adharma Duryodhana was doing. A girl who is going to be raped by anyone, including by her own husband, has every right to protect herself, even resorting to extreme violence. A householder has the right to protect his or her family by whatever means possible. A country has to defend itself all foreign aggression. Mahatma the Gandas uh, emancipation from British Raj through non-violence. But he did not stop government of India having a standing army, because he know that those two things are totally different. So, day-to-day life, we can never rule out Himsa in the protection of Dharma. Ahimsa is the best way, but when Ahimsa methods fail, there is nothing wrong to resort to Himsa to protect Dharma in all circumstances. Look at what Krishna said. Krishna did not only say, when there is decline of Dharma and the rise of Adharma, I discern myself for the protection of good and destruction of the wicked and for the establishment of righteousness, I come into being from age to age. Martin Luther King Jr. said, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice anywhere. If something happened bad in your office, you cannot sit idle. You have to fight it. Even if it happened to somebody else, you have to bring it up. If a girl is being harassed in your office by some superior, you have to at least, at least write anonymous letter to the management that this is happening and I cannot tell you because I may lose my job, but you have to look into it. The moment we keep quiet when injustice is happening, that means you're part of injustice. If you don't defend Dharma, you're automatically a part of Adharma. We have no right to stop working. Even we are retired or disabled, we have to work all the time. Krishna said to Arjuna, I have nothing to do with three worlds. I have nothing to gain in three worlds. Still, I am always engaged in action. Lord Krishna is telling us that we have no excuse to stay idle. We should actively participate in selfless actions, even if we are retired, old, or weak. Inactivity is the cause of stress and depression. That is the reason why Lord Krishna repeatedly tells us that we have no right to stop working. Krishna said, by abstaining from action, nobody can achieve freedom from action. Not by abandonment or renunciation of action, one can have attained perfection. No one can refrain from doing something, not even a second. Everyone is forced to act all the time due to the influence of three gunas. A person who's stopped working, whose mind dwells in sense object, deludes himself, and he is called a hypocrite. However, one who tries to control the senses by mind and without attachment to sensual pleasures, engage in selfless action, which is superior to others. A person excels in life when she disciplines the senses with the mind and engage in work without getting attached to the result of action. Arjuna, as such, perform a prescribed duty, for doing so better than inaction. One cannot even maintain one's physical body without action. All actions are binding unless done as sacrifice to God. Those who conduct their duties according to my commandments with full faith, without envy and egoless, are also released from all bondage of action. However, those who out of envy disregard my teachings and do not participate are deluded and deprived of knowledge, such people have indeed lost understanding and goal in life. Krishna deals with Indriyas in a very, very detailed manner in the Bhagavad Gita. Krishna sent at least 10 or 15 verses to deal with Indriya. He said, when one can completely withdraw the senses from sense objects, as a tortoise withdraw the limbs into shell for protection, then the intellect of such a person is considered steady. He continues, Arjuna, desire for sensual pleasures fades away if one abstains from sense enjoyment. But the craving for sense enjoyment remains. The craving also disappears from one who surrenders himself to God. He said, Arjuna, restless senses are extremely clever and they can dupe even a very learned man. As such, one should fix mind on God after bringing senses under control. It is just like I know somebody helping a young woman, something. But if you are not careful helping her, your senses will take off and you will have an ulterior motive of helping this girl. So we have to be always be careful about what we do because we don't want our indriyas to take over our even good acts. Krishna said, when one contemplates and is on a sense object, attachment to the object is born. From attachment, desire is born. From desire comes frustration, and from frustration comes delusion. He said, when one is deluded, one loses memory. When one loses memory, the power of discrimination is lost. The destruction of power of discrimination, one falls from the righteous path. He said, each sense organ has love affairs, raga dvesha, feeling towards objects. One should not live under such attachment and aversion for objects because they are stumbling blocks on the path of spiritual maturity and self-realization. Lord Krishna said, some yogis offer the senses of hearing to the fire of mental control. Others offer the functions of all senses in the fire of self-restraint yoga, which is signated by Jnana Yoga. Power of lust. See, Krishna even addressed that. He said, as the fire is covered by smoke, as the mirror is covered by dust, the embryo is by womb. So one's proper understanding of truth is covered by lust. Arjuna, even a wise man's vision is obscured by the perpetual enemy in the form of lust, which is never satisfied and which burns like fire. Therefore, very outset, one should control his senses and giving up on lust and destroy knowledge. This is another thing Krishna discussed in very minute detail because everybody asked me this kind of karma, akarma, and vikarma. Karma is the prescribed duties which we do according to Ashrama Dharma, but it will bear karmic debt at the end. Akarma, actions performed without any attachment, which bears no karmic debt. Akarma means activities that have no reaction, that bind us to the material world. They are opposite to karma, and we call inaction for this reason, even though they are actions. Vikarma is forbidden action. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, about 8 or 9 verses, Krishna spends discussing about this subject. Arjuna, you must understand the nature of all 3 recommended: action, karma, wrong action, vikarma, and inaction, akarma. The truth about this is profound and difficult to understand. Krishna says that most people don't understand the difference between those who see action in inaction, karma in akarma, and inaction in action, akarma in karma, are truly wise among humans. Although performing all kinds of actions, they are yogis and masters of all the actions. See, I only put verse 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, and 22 continuous thing. I don't want to spend more time on it. That's why I stick with this. How does the mind work? Krishna says, when a person constantly thinks about objects, attachment for those objects arise in mind. From attachment, desire is born, and from desire, anger is born. From anger comes delusion. From delusion comes loss of memory. From loss of memory comes destruction of intellect. And once the intellect is destroyed, person perishes. That's the way it is described. Difficulty in controlling the mind, thoughts in mind. This question Arjuna asked, all of us have the problem because we also have problem of controlling thoughts in mind. So this is what Arjuna asked. Arjuna is so frustrated that he cannot control his mind, so he tells Krishna, "Oh Krishna, since mind is unsteady and turbulent, obstinate and very strong, controlling the mind is more difficult than controlling the wind." Krishna says, undoubtedly, Arjuna, the mind is restless and very difficult to control. But mind can be controlled by constant practice and detachment. Lord Krishna gave utmost importance to mind and thoughts throughout the Bhagavad Gita, especially in the 6th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. Lord Krishna said, even a wise man acts according to the nature he has acquired in the world. People follow the required nature. What will depression of senses accomplish? Attachment as well as aversion in relation to the sense objects is deeply rooted in the senses and is such unavoidable. One should not control by senses since they are obstacle in the path of self-realization. He continues. Krishna said, by what influence one act improperly, even unwillingly, as if forced to do against his own act, convictions and will. Arjuna, the force that makes people act is lust, bottom Rajoguna. Later, this force transforms into anger, knowing this anger is sinful and is injurious to the person. See, this is the way the mind is broken down in ancient scriptures. Jagrati is the waking state of mind, Swapna is the dream state of mind. When we enter in the dream state of mind, we forget everything. We will see a tiger chasing us and we sweat. And then what happens? We wake up and say it's only a dream. Sushupti is the deep state of mind, sleep state of mind. That time we don't know what's happening. Turiya, you go to a boundary. When someone enters Turiya state, everything becomes one. And person will transcend duality feelings of hot and cold, happiness and unhappiness. Turiya is known as Amrita, the immeasurable, measureless in the Mantupical Upanishads, being synonymous to Samadhi in the yoga terminology. This is every time people think that, oh, God made me do it. Comedian late Flip Wilson used to say, devil made me do it. God is not responsible what you think or do. You alone are responsible. Krishna said, God is not responsible for anyone's sinful activities or pious activities. People are mistaken about this since the knowledge is covered by ignorance. Then another thing, God does not interfere with the free will of human beings. Krishna did not influence Arjuna's free will. Arjuna has every right in the world to comply and follow the teachings of Krishna. Arjuna also have equal rights in the world to completely deny and do not accept any teaching of Lord Krishna. So Arjuna, Krishna by no means tell Arjuna, you have to do this or you have to do that, or if not, you'll go to hell. No, no such thing. Krishna said, God does not decide karma each one of us should do, nor he induces people to act, nor does he create fruits of any action. Each person acts according to his vasanas, past, present, and perception of mind. See, Krishna is slowly developing. Now he said, Arjuna, become a yogi. Because he said, a yogi lives like a lotus leaf. Raindrops are falling on the lotus leaf, but lotus leaf is not affected with the raindrops. Similarly, yogi lives in the world, but the yogi is unaffected by the world. That is the reason why Lord Krishna said, Arjuna, become a yogi. Krishna said, just as the ocean is unaffected by the waters of innumerable rivers flowing in it, yogi is unaffected by sensual pleasures due to the positive and negative reaction to the actions he or she does. I personally feel That's my check. For all the things to control your thoughts and karma, the easiest one is to reduce it to simply focus your attention on your breath. See, from time immemorial, Hindu rishis knew that breathing, thoughts, and mind are very closely connected. Rishis knew that breath is a very powerful tool to calm the mind. They also knew what we think become. Whenever we get angry, whenever we become emotional, whenever we become sad, we have to watch our breathing pattern. It will be erratic and short and rapid. When we are happy and have sublime thoughts, the breath is slow and relaxed. Mental activity also slow down. Rishis, the ancient scientists of India, also taught us, if you breathe like a monkey, you will die like a monkey in few years. If you breathe like a tortoise, you will live very long time like a tortoise. A monkey lives for 20 to 30 years and breathes 30 to 50 breaths per minute. A tortoise lives up to 400 years. The reason for longevity is that tortoise breathes only 3 to 4 breaths per minute. See, Krishna even introduced Raja Yoga in the following manner. Arjuna, Raja Vidya, raw knowledge, kingly secret, and it is also purest of all knowledge. It is directly perceivable, easy to practice, and is imperishable. What is yoga? According to Patanjali Yoga Sutra, yoga is Chitravarti Nirodha. Yoga means union with divine, Chitravarti means mental stoppage. So yoga or a self-realization means stoppage of the mental activity. See, when your thoughts are completely gone, you automatically start realizing. Lord Krishna delved into further into yoga, describing our pranayama. Pranayama is the combination of two words. Prana means breath, ayama means suspension, a stoppage of breath. Krishna says, Arjuna, some offer as a sacrifice the outward breath, apana, into inward breath, prana, and offer as a sacrifice inward breath, prana, and outward apana, resulting in a complete stoppage of breathing. When you stop breathing completely, your thoughts will cease to exist. And it works both ways. When there is no thought, there is no breathing. This is almost like a snake devouring itself to the tail. And look at what Rishi Vasishtha told Lord Rama. He said to Lord Rama, Chit chalade samsare nischale moshubachale. That means when chit is vibrating, mind is vibrating, the whole world comes to existence. When chit or mind stop vibrating, then the whole world is destroyed. A person attains salvation. One of the best ways to deal with anxiety and stress is to practice Hamsa or Soham, breathing exercise, which is known as baby pranayama, which involves watching inhalation and exhalation without interfering the flow pattern of air or chest or nostrils movement. And next one, we said, yoga and deep breathing exercises are true answer for the coronavirus anxiety and stress. The world needs yoga more than ever. In the latest article, Harvard Medical School recommends yoga and controlled breathing to deal with coronavirus anxiety. Believe it or not, to a very large extent, controlled breathing is Hindu pranayama. I firmly believe breathing is the best way to go for most people to deal with stress. If you start taking deep breath, if you start practicing deep breathing exercise as much as possible, and also Hamsa, watching your breath, watching your inhalation, exhalation, you could be in control of yourself to a very large extent. You could deal with confrontational situations at home and office, etc. If you do that. Brahma Muhurta. I am bringing this Brahma Muhurta because most people are asking me, when is the best time to meditate or do things? And it is 3:30 a.m. to 6 a.m. So I am saying, please study, write, sing, and meditate during this time. According to Ayurveda, Brahma Muhurta occurs during the Vada morning, 2 a.m., 6 a.m. Since there will be very little thought activity in either at that time, your thoughts will be very pure and unadulterated at this time. Honestly, if you're trying to conceive, this is the best time to conceive also, because it will be, you will get a soul which is really looking to a very advanced soul to come and become your child. I wrote all my 3 books during Brahma Muhurta. What is the best way to eradicate all karmic sins? It's total surrender to God. When we think or do everything in offering to God, we can eliminate your ego. During the last chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna said, Arjuna, abandon all dharma and just surrender unto me. I shall personally deliver you from all bunch of karma, do not fear. But this is the question. You may ask yourself, why did Krishna wait till the 18th chapter to advise this? Why couldn't he advise this to Arjuna in the 2nd chapter? Reason. Total surrender God is extremely difficult to most people because of ego. 99% of people only pray to God to meet their personal needs like getting a job, becoming rich, passing an exam, getting a suitable boy or a girl for the daughter or the son to get married. There are not many Prahlad, there are not many Ramakrishna, there are not many Mirabai, there are not many Kabirdas, there are not many apostles, Saint Patrick in this world. Apostle Saint Patrick begged to be crucified upside down. As the story goes, Saint Patrick refused to be crucified upwards as his master Jesus, so he requested to be an upside down death. And the Romans were more than happy to apply. I have witnessed devotees fighting over their personal God superiority on other gods. I have seen in some Hindu temples, I don't want to mention it, and also I have seen in Christian churches and Islamic mosque, etc. First of all, God is not a man, God is not a woman. In fact, everything about God is abominable. God did not create man in his own image. Man created God in his image. One scripture says to us this, call me by what God said, call me by whatever name you like, worship me in any form you like. All that worship goes to one and only supreme reality. Look at it. Krishna only said, if one offers me with love and devotion a leaf, flower, fruit or water, I will accept it. God does not care whether we know mantras or whether we have knowledge of Sanskrit or Latin or Hebrew. We do not need to chant mantras or having knowledge of rituals to worship God. Of course, that does not mean mantras will not help. God is insisting only on sincere devotion. Any prayer in any language in very simple words too. There is a story in Autobiography Yogi. One priest went to a remote island where people were worshipping with 3 chiefs in charge of it. So priest went there, no. Your worship is all wrong. You have to worship God like I wrote in the Holy Bible. You have to do this, do that, and that. So priest stayed with them for a week. Then she took a boat and he was in Atlantic. He was on the top of the deck of the ship, just watching the stars. Suddenly 3 stars ascended on the deck. There are these 3 chiefs. And they said, oh, hello, priest. We forgot the last one you taught us. The priest said to them, oh my God, what you are doing the right way. I have no right to interfere. Even Thothapuri, who did not, the Ramakrishna Paramahansa's master, did not like the way Ramanuja is crying to Kali, Mother Kali all the time. And then when something happened, Thothapuri finally apologized to Ramanuja and said, continue what you're doing, praying to Kali. So what is the best way to deal with life? I am saying to everybody, live a balanced life. The whole concept of ashramas and ashram dharmas were formulated so that we can enjoy a balanced life. Lord Krishna is asking to live a moderation, to live a balanced life. Extreme austerities of fasting to death or subjecting the body and mind to excruciating pain in the name of spirituality has nothing to do with Hinduism. Krishna said, yoga is not possible for those one who eats too much or one who does not eat at all. Yoga is not possible who sleeps too much or who sleeps always awake. You don't have to start to become spiritual. You don't have to adopt severe austerities in life to become spiritual. You don't have to deny sex to your spouse to become spiritual. You don't have to wear coffee or saffron rod to become spiritual. You don't have to do anything extraordinary to become spiritual. Just live a normal life. Remember, it is a glutton worm which eats 6-7 times its weight in green. One day enters a pupa state for 21 days, it doesn't eat, and finally becomes a beautiful butterfly which only drinks the nectar alone. Similarly, is the most materially person on earth one day will become a yogi. So never feel that you are lost or condemned, even if you did worse things in life. A saint is never born. A saint is a sinner transformed like a glutton worm becoming butterfly. Nobody is lost in Hinduism. Nobody will rot in hell in Hinduism. Immortal soul. Now I am going to start about our salvation thing. Immortal soul, Hindu moksha, mukti or salvation comes based on the firm belief that soul within the body is immortal called Atma. By the way, Abrahamic religion do not believe the soul within the body is immortal. That is the reason why we can never compare Hindu salvation concept with Abrahamic religion salvation concept. Holy Bible said, soul that sinneth, it shall surely die. Jesus himself said in the Holy Bible, do not fear those who kill the body but cannot kill the soul. Rather fear him who can destroy both in soul and body in hell. The Namaste concept originates from the Hindu belief that the real I within all of us is immortal soul or Atman, which is indeed God. If anyone does not believe that, then saying Namaste does not make any sense at all. Hindu scriptures state our body is perishable and temporary, and soul within the body is immortal. Immortal soul is within the body is known as Atman, and in the Dvaita philosophy is known as Jivatman, and Dvaita philosophy God is known as Paramatman in the scripture. This is the way the Atman and 5 koshas. Our body has 5 koshas, Annamaya kosha, which are food sheet, pranamaya kosha, air sheet, manomaya kosha, mind sheet, vijnanamaya kosha, wisdom sheet, anandamaya kosha, bliss sheet. These 5 sheets are dependent of Atman. Hindu temples are constructed to represent the 5 kosha of human body. Within the place, where the deity is placed known as Garbhagriha. Krishna said, the soul that dwells in the body of all beings is eternal and indestructible. Therefore, you should not grieve for anybody when they die. You are not a body with a soul, you are a soul with a body. As far as the immortal soul is concerned, Arjuna, it is neither but nor doth attain can. The immortal soul is neither born nor does die, it die nor cease to exist. Birth and service. This is the way Hindu scriptures say. According to Hinduism, the body alone dies. The immortal soul within the body never dies, but the path the soul takes is decided upon the path action done in the body, which are known as karmas or karmic death. After the death, according to the karmic death, soul ends up in heaven or hell for a short time. Then it takes birth again. When an individual exhausts all karmic debt, then the person attains salvation or self-realization. When someone dies, saying or writing rest in peace is a service Christianity. And Hindu should only say or pray for Atma Shanti, meaning praying for the soul to attain moksha or mukti, salvation, and to never take birth again. Sin. Nobody will ever say, I am a sinner in Hinduism. Because sin means ignorance in India. Sin is the false belief that one is the perishable body. At Jnana eradicate the ignorance. Lord Krishna said, even if you are the worst sinner of the world, you can cross the ocean of sin by a bark of wisdom. Lord Krishna also said, as the blazing fire burns food to ashes, Arjuna, so does the fire of true knowledge which will burn on karmic death into ashes. The sin concept originates from the Adam and Eve story. Adam and Eve disobeyed God and ate the forbidden fruit of tree of good and evil. By eating that, they attained sin, according to Christianity. Even though Judaism, Islam, Christianity are closely connected, only Christians believe in the original sin. Jesus never spoke about original sin. Christians believe all of us are born with original sin. Only through Jesus we can attain salvation. Heaven and hell. Heaven and hell are not permanent in Hinduism. Heaven and no guru or Hindu theologian will spend time discussing heaven or hell, even though heaven and hell are mentioned in Purana. Nowhere Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna said heaven and hell are permanent. If you never he said, if you don't follow me, you go to hell. Salvation. There is no word salvation in Hinduism. Salvation is known as moksha or mukti. Salvation is also known as self-realization. What is salvation? Salvation means realizing one is indeed the immortal soul or Atman within the body and giving up the false belief that one is the perishable body. That is the reason why Hindu salvation is known as self-realization. That means realizing that one is indeed self or Atman. Hindu salvation is also known as moksha or mukti, meaning liberation or release from the repeated cycle of birth and death known as salvation. Hindu salvation concepts are very logical, scientific, very easy to understand. Salvation for everybody. Only difference is the time factor. You don't have to be Hindu to attain salvation. Salvation is for all, irrespective one is a Hindu or not. Nobody is denied salvation. The best among us will attain salvation with one life. The worst among us will attain salvation through many lives. Everyone will eventually attain salvation. Nobody is denied salvation. Nobody will rot in hell. These are the four paths. Everybody in the world take up one or the path or mixes all the four paths in their life. Jnana Yoga, Karma Yoga, Raja Yoga, and Bhakti Yoga. Arjuna asked a tough question to Krishna and then said, Krishna, a man of faith who could not control his mind, who deviated from spiritual path at the end and failed to attain self-realization in that, what will happen to him? That's an excellent question. Krishna, does this man who has fallen away from spiritual and material pursuit perish like a driven crowd with no solid footing anywhere? This is my doubt, Krishna, and I ask you to dispel it completely. But for you, no one is to be found who can destroy this doubt. Krishna said, Arjuna, that man will not perish. He will not meet any destruction in this world nor in the next. One who is stepped into spiritual pursuit will never overcome by misfortune. That man, the unsuccessful yogi, attains heaven. Later will be born into a pious family. Or that person will be born directly into a family of transcendentalist of wisdom without going to heaven. Anyway, after taking birth, he will revive his spiritual consciousness as previous lives. He will try again to make further progress in order to achieve complete success. So, according to Hinduism, we are not playing an old game on a snake and ladder. You make one move, you're top with the no. Once you are a certain level of spiritual achievement, you continue. There is no falling back. You continue further and further. There's an old saying that all that is necessary to evil to prevail, to good people doing nothing. So please, I beg you, it is our duty to educate the masses about our culture. When somebody asks you about Hinduism, don't shy away and run away. Please answer them. Please, I mean, you can recommend this video or some other video or some other Guruji's video. Answer these questions. And that way people know that this way they fully understand. I think I am finishing. Thank you very much. So
Thank you, Vishwanathanji. Thank you very much.
Namaskar, everybody. Thank you all for joining.
Thank you.
Vishwanathanji for a very enlightening.
question?
If you have any questions, please send it to us at discourses@hindu.university, and we will forward it to Vishwanathanji and try and get your responses. Our next session is going to be on next Sunday, and it is going to be by Guru Krishna Ji, and it's going to be on manifesting your intentions.